Thank you for joining us, and this is Business Incorporated. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. Coming up on the show, world food prices jump to 6-year high. OPEC Plus resumed talks today on output cut extension after impasse. South Africa seeks $400 million from buyer for stake in airline. Let's get the show started with market numbers at intraday, and our first port of call is here in Africa. Most of the markets we track here on the program were in the positive territory at intraday, except the market in Egypt. Here in Nigeria, the all-share index showed a rebound from yesterday's close, trading 0.37% positive at midday. The JSE index in South Africa was also in the green, up 0.90%. On the flip side, however, is the market in Egypt, which was negative at 0.32%. The Nairobi Stock Exchange in Kenya closed Wednesday positive at 1.27%. In the Middle East, the markets were trading with mixed sentiment at intraday. While the Abu Dhabi index traded in the negative, down 0.42%, the Dubai financial market was in green, 0.82%. Meanwhile, the Qatari Stock Exchange traded in the positive 0.71%, and the Saudi Arabia Stock Exchange was down. In Europe, stocks were mixed in early trade as global markets pause for breath, awaiting more news on U.S. stimulus measures and coronavirus vaccine approval. Let's hear more from Conrad from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Hello, Conrad. Good afternoon. Well, the news about the approval of a corona vaccine in the UK has given sentiment on the trading floors a boost. But what's the timeline for approval and distribution in the European Union? I mean, you were at the press conference organized by BioNTech yesterday. Why is it taking longer than in the UK?
Well, Jimmy, statements from the UK's government try to make it pretty clear that the UK was faster than the rest of Europe because of Brexit, because the UK's authorities have acted and decided independently here. On the other hand, critics on the European continent say that the UK's decision-making process is a bit less focused on liability of the companies involved, whereas the process here in the European Union is focusing more on security. And that's why it's expected now that the BioNTech vaccine will be approved here in the European Union by the end of this month. Another promising vaccine by the company Moderna is expected to be approved in January. Now, of course, in order to allow us all to return to normal, a lot of people will have to be vaccinated. According to different experts, you get numbers from between 60 to 90% of the population which have to be vaccinated. And that's a bit of a concern now for the government here in Germany, because the approval rating in polls asking people here in Germany whether they would be willing to take a vaccine have declined from 79 to 54%. So in order to make this vaccination work, the government needs to do some convincing.
And coronavirus issues. There's a lot of talk about climate change again, as food giant Nestle has announced it will invest €3 billion to cut carbon emissions. And of course, in the US, a number of large corporations demand from the government to return to the Paris Climate Accord. Why all this activity now, and what's the take on this where you are?
Well, of course, large corporations like Nestle need one thing in particular. They need reliability when it comes to legislation. When they decide on large investments like the one that you talked about, when they decide about them, of course, companies like Nestle want to be sure that it pays off, that it's worth making such big investments. And in America, you know, when the Trump administration decided that America leave the Paris Accord, not all companies were happy. A few, of course, course, were happy, but many more companies were unhappy, in particular global ones that, want a common framework globally at best. Now, in this transition period from President Trump to President Biden, this is, of course, the moment where those topics are going to be discussed and new discussions are taken. Here in Europe, too, we have a couple of fundamental decisions in the pipeline of policymakers. That's why the discussion is heating up right now. Next week, there's a summit of EU government leaders where, the framework, the environmental framework and the targets of the European Union will be discussed again. At the heart of the plan is the effort to deepen the EU emission reduction target to at least 55% by the end of next decade, below the level of 1990. That's very ambitious. That's more ambitious than the current targets. It would also include an additional 350 billion euros of investments per year in energy production and infrastructure. So a lot of money at stake here. And of course, the markets are now discussing where's the money coming from and where exactly is the money going.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the currency market. The euro-dollar exchange rate has climbed to the highest point in 2.5 years. What's behind this? And are people in Frankfurt happy, or are they concerned?
They're a bit more concerned, I would say. Remember how dependent in particular, the German economy is dependent on exports, not only within the Eurozone, where the exchange rate is not playing an important role, but also to other countries of the world where the higher the value of the euro, the lower your profits are from exports to those countries. That's, of course, a concern. And also, another reason for concern is that this euro strength is very much also a dollar weakness. The Federal Reserve in the United States, in its latest edition of the Beige Book, talks about no growth in all the districts of the Fed. Also, yesterday we got a bit of a disappointing piece of data from the US labor market, and also Corona is playing a role. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the US, forecasts that the coronavirus death toll might increase next year to 450,000 by February, unless a far larger percentage of the population in America is willing to wear a mask. I'm sure that you get the reports in Nigeria as well. The Americans are very hesitant to take that advice.
I honestly don't know why they have to be hesitant. Anyway, Conrad, we just have one more day to do this again for the week. So I hope to see you tomorrow. Okay, Christmas, they say, is a time for giving, and Sainsbury and Aldi have just become the next UK supermarket chain to give back their business rates relief to the government. This is coming 24 hours after Tesco got the ball rolling down the aisle. Juliana is in London to update us on developments there. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon. So while Sainsbury, Aldi and Tesco are doing a giveaway, EasyJet wants customers who want to use overhead luggage lockers to buy more expensive tickets. Why would EasyJet do this?
Well, that's the question a lot of very angry passengers are asking today. Yesterday, EasyJet announced this new policy for cabin luggage. At the moment, you are able to take in hand luggage, which is the wheelie or the bag that people usually carry, and a small bag that you can put on your lap or underneath your seat. But starting January 2021, if you want to put a bag into an overhead locker space, you have to have the better seats. So let's say the seats at the front of the budget airline, and they range between $7.99 and $34.99. Now, the airline have said in a statement that they're doing this to kind of manage their overhead locker capacity. But of course, considering the fact that passenger numbers are down about 80 to 90%, there are people questioning why exactly they would do this. And this is, I think, a long-running problem with a lot of budget airlines. Yes, it's much cheaper to fly to Europe on EasyJet or Ryanair, which is another popular budget airline, but the costs do add up in some ways or another, whether you're paying for food, whether you are paying for extra legroom space. But now with EasyJet, of course, you're having to pay for this extra locker headroom space. And I've got to tell you, it's not going down well with EasyJet passengers.
Well, I guess it's just because they want to ramp up fund there, considering what COVID-19 had done to them. Anyway, update from Arcadia. Sir Philip Green's family is to pay a promised £50 million into their fashion empire's pension scheme within the next 10 days, almost a year earlier than scheduled. Why? We talked about Arcadia on Monday when it fell into administration.
Yeah, we did talk about the Arcadia collapse, and that's a huge topic of discussion here in Britain. Lady Tina Green, who is Sir Philip Green's wife, she is actually the official owner of the Arcadia fashion group, and she had promised to pay £100 million last year, and I believe that payment was due to be paid in 3 instalments, and it would end September 2021. But of course, there's been this massive story. A lot of MPs, business owners, members of the public are not happy with the Green family at the moment. This isn't the first time Sir Philip Green has been caught up or embroiled in scandal involving a collapse of a massive retail chain. We saw that with the British Home Store, BHS, and the pension fund went with it. Now, the pension deficit fund, well, the pension deficit for the Arcadia Group is expected to be about £350 million. That's a black hole. That's money that should be there that isn't there at the moment, which is why there are so much urgent calls for the Greens to do what they should do and put their money in their pockets and pay this out. It is affecting about 9,000 staff, both current staff and former staff, and they're expected to get a loss of about 20% of how much they've been put in a pot. We know that 2 previous instalments of £25 million has been paid. As you said, this extra £50 million was due to be paid and next year it will be paid within the next 10 days. And we did hear from Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday. He said that Alok Sharma, the business secretary here in Britain, has written to the Pensions Protection Fund, asking them to look into the activities of the directors of the company, so the Greens, to find out exactly what has gone wrong. But it's still a massive issue, still extremely painful. We haven't yet heard about anyone who's lost their job at Topshop or anyone in the Arcadia Group yet, but we are expecting that over the next coming weeks. But I suppose this will be a slight sigh of relief for those that have been putting in this money for years and years and months, that at least some of it will be paid back, but it's certainly not enough.
I guess the stories are still developing. Anyway, Juliana, I will let you go until you give us a sense of how the markets are doing this intraday. And of course, their drivers. Tell me.
The FTSE in the red at intraday. It was flat, but it's in the red now. The all share is down 0.13%. The FTSE 100 is down by 0.18%. And the FTSE 250, domestic market, up slightly by 0.04%. In the currencies market, the pound is up on the US dollar by 0.35%, up on the euro by 0.41%, and up on the Japanese yen by 0.24%. No surprises, the main driver is Brexit. Look, we're less than 30 days away from the end of the transition period on December the 31st. Both sides are still, locked in these really tough, tense negotiations. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I've said it probably 1,000 times. Fisheries, governance, level playing field, all remain the main sticking points. We did get a little bit of breaking news earlier today saying that the Internal Market Bill, which is that piece of legislation that's ripped up the international treaty that has the world angry with Britain, that is going to be discussed and debated in the House of Commons on Monday. So that is going to be very, very controversial. It's going to be a very late night in the House of Commons. What we're hearing is that apparently we're expecting a deal over the weekend, but then we've been expecting the deals over subsequent weekends. But it should be coming anytime soon. That's if a deal is to be done. We are hearing that French President Emmanuel Macron is pretty tough, not happy unhappy with the fact that some of his fishermen won't be able to access British fishing waters, and he could veto a deal. So there's still so much to play for, but of course the clock is ticking fast.
And as it's ticking, we'll keep talking about it. Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. I'll see you tomorrow, Juliana. Okay, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk commodities. Do stay with us. All right, just before we talk commodities, news just getting in now says the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced that the new policy, which is an amendment of procedures for receipt of diaspora remittances, granting access to forex from diaspora from any international money transfer operator, particularly Western Union and MoneyGram, takes effect officially from tomorrow, the 4th of December, 2020. Okay, Christmas is just 22 days away, and one food commodity mostly presented during this festive season is turkey. Imported turkey accounts for 60% of aggregate supply in Nigeria, but with the prohibition of forex for imported food items and increase in livestock feed prices, what happens? Let's talk to one of the research analysts with financial derivatives company, Mayowa Ige. Hello, Mayowa. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So prohibition of forex for imported food items is still in place, and of course the price of livestock feeds is on the rise. How do you think this will affect supply of turkey in Nigerian markets, particularly as we move closer to Christmas?
Okay, so before the ban, before the forest restrictions, Nigeria was spending about $22 billion on importation of food and food items annually. And so in a bid to increase our local production, the government brought about this policy. While this policy isn't bad in itself, really. The problem, however, is that it was certain things were not taken into proper consideration. The fact that our local, the challenges of agricultural production in Nigeria and the undercapacity of our local farmers, especially which our turkey producers are a part of, those things were not taken into consideration. And so with this restriction on forex for imported food, it's possible that our supply will be shortened. And if our supply cannot meet the demand for turkey in Nigeria, the prices of turkey in local markets will increase in the near future.
Now, turkey is a commodity whose demand peaks during the festive season, as we know. Now, in the last year, the price of turkey rose almost by 24%. Now, do you think the price of turkey will increase more? Also, what do you think will happen to the producers of turkey during seasons of lower demand?
So the price of turkey will definitely increase during the festive season, like all other commodities that are in high demand during the festive season, like rice and chicken and the likes. But then currently, there's the income squeeze and rate of unemployment that has come about as a result of the state of the economy, thanks to COVID-19. This would limit and reduce the demand for turkey during this season, and so this would reduce the rate of increase of the price of turkey in the period. And for turkey farmers, we don't have that more turkey farmers in Nigeria. The industry is relatively it's not very large. So so they still have a demand. We still have relatively high consumption of turkey in Nigeria. And so they still have a demand even outside of the festive season. And so nothing really they wouldn't be affected negatively outside the festive season.
And animal husbandry, especially the poultry segment, seems to be the fastest growing agricultural sector with a current net worth of about 1.6 trillion naira. Now, the turkey industry is a relatively small part of this segment. What can be done to increase the size of the turkey segment in Nigeria? Or you may choose to call it industry, yeah.
Yes, so turkey, we have a highest consumption or demand of turkey in Nigeria. And then ordinarily you would think that this should drive more people to venture into this turkey industry production space. But then there are many challenges that are affecting this industry, which is why it has not grown past what it is now. One of the major challenges affecting the industry is the unpredictable and poor survival rate of turkey poults, and the fact that most of our turkey farmers are indigenous farmers who use poor farming techniques to rear their turkeys. And turkeys are highly prone to diseases. And so some of the things that can be done to increase our industries, we have to increase our production first to increase our industry. And so some of the things that can be done, for instance, is the government can hire agricultural extension officers to educate farmers on strategies to limit the spread of diseases amongst their turkeys, and also to educate them on how to create quality feed for their turkey, feeds that have the right amount of nutrients for their turkey. And also the government can actually provide soft loans for turkey farmers. This would encourage the existing farmers to increase their the size of their enterprise, and also encourage new players to come into this industry. And then lastly, the government the government or farmers, or should I say the agricultural institutes, can also consider the idea of crossbreeding foreign turkeys with our local turkeys. This would help to increase the genetics and characteristics of our turkey produced in Nigeria, and also increase their productivity and performance.
Well, thank you very much, Maya. Well, we appreciate your time. Well, it's not just in Nigeria that we keep experiencing high food prices. Actually, today, the United Nations agency, the Food and Agriculture Organization, says global food commodity prices rose sharply in November to their highest level in nearly 6 years. So we'll continue to track those food commodity index. Thank you, Maiwa. And talking about those food prices there, global food prices, of course, rose sharply in November to their highest level in nearly 6 years. This is according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. The rise was due in part to adverse weather conditions. The UN agency says prices of the most globally traded foodstuffs were up across the board, putting extra pressure, in particular, on 45 countries that need outside help feeding their populations. The FAO Food Price Index averaged 105 points during the month, up 3.9% from October and 6.5% from a year earlier. The biggest rise was in the vegetable oil price index, which jumped 14.5% because of low palm oil stocks. A shipment of 950,000 barrels of crude oil extracted from the African county of Chad has arrived in the southern city of Kaohsiung in Taiwan. The crude oil was extracted from an oil field managed by Taiwan's state-owned oil producer. And South Africa is looking to raise about $400 million from the sale of a stake in its bankrupt national airline, South African Airways, a plan likely to lower the chances of finding a partner to aid its revival. The funds will be used to be recapitalized the reformed South African Airways. The government is banking on SAA attracting interest because it holds some lucrative routes and valuable landing slots, such as London's Heathrow Airport. And that's a wrap on the program. Thank you for watching.